Okay, thanks, Chris. I think that was a great summary, so I might use that at the end. I'm delighted to be here. I'm also very conscious we're kind of an hour adrift, so I'll sort of go through this at a fair old pace. So my background is as a communications provider and operational planner in various roles during 26 years in the British Army, which included 3 deployments in Afghanistan. And for 3 years, some time ago now, I was responsible for the UK MOD's global Skynet capabilities, which you've heard a bit about today, and their services. Since then, I've had about a dozen years with industry, first with Viasat, so old Viasat, not the Inmarsat bit, and then the last 5 at NSSLGlobal. And I tend to look at what matters at the user end of things. So it's not meant to be a sales pitch, but clearly I will need to outline what we do at NSSLGlobal. It's the first time we've sponsored at this exhibition, and also encourage you to come and visit us at Stand 28 next to Kuiper during what's left of the day. Okay, so a little bit of context. So from a user perspective, space provides capabilities to, or answers to 3 questions. I'm a simple soldier, so I like triangles. So where are you and things you care about, obviously PNT, for targeting and key to the networks we leverage. What's going on around you and wider, so Earth observation, ISR, and space-based ISR was already a driver on the ground network and will be increasingly for space-to-space connectivity, which I'll come back to. And who can you talk to or what can you watch? So primarily for this audience, satcom, TV, the distribution of video, films, training, and including the intelligence stuff collected from space. Now these 3 things overlap, and as a company we have interest and systems in all 3, some used for decades, some evolving, but all about shifting ones and zeros. And connectivity has to come with choices and resilience, and many of you will have heard of the approach to PACE, so primary, alternate, contingent, and emergency, and all that needs to operate in an assured space environment, so understood, protected, and defended, which many speakers have spoken about. Now, we don't fly spacecraft, so that stuff is not directly our business, but it's critical to what we deliver. So a little bit about NSSL. So we've got about 55 years in the SATCOM business. We first supported the Royal Navy in 1982 when the task group headed down to liberate the Falkland Islands, so way down in the South Atlantic, through to today, enabling the UK-led Carrier Strike Group, which will shortly head out to the Asia-Pacific region later this year, unless things do change. We're about 250 people, so we're not huge, about half in the UK and half across mainland Europe, the USA, and wider, based on our logistics footprint, our engineering, and our main customers. And we've got 2 main customer groups, which I'll talk about use cases. So one is commercial maritime, so mainly oil tankers and cargo vessels, and the second is defense and government, so Navy ships, commando units, army units, specialist aircraft, and the like. And like I said, we don't fly satellites, but we lease capacity on plenty of them for many of the organizations here at this event. And our network covers a complete globe, with many overlapping beams and other services such as GX or Iridium overlaid through that network and managed via a 24/7, 365 network and customer operations centers, 2 of them in the UK, so dual redundant and both manned, and 1 in Germany specific for our long-standing Bundeswehr customer. So through these NOCs, we deal with individual ships, end users, we manage our networks, and we run the ticketing systems, and if needed, we call off from a global engineering and logistics support team. We're an engineering-centric company, from design to installation, and a service provider and integrator with a kind of can-do approach, but we have to sit and recognize that much of our business is in defense. And those acquisition and assurance processes and hoop jumping do mean we have to apply quite a lot of standards. So noting some 80% of the world's logistics traffic goes by sea, it's clearly a vital and growing market, including with the emergence of uncrewed surface vessels of various sizes. Now, for services we deliver to the UK MOD, we have end-to-end responsibility for terminals, gateways, basebands, encryption, SATCOM capacity, safety, security, logistics support, training, and technical assurance. So a complete service wrap around those services. And I'd like to sort of refer to HMS Tamar, bottom left. So ships clearly have multiple connections. So she is an offshore patrol vessel. She has no X-band fitted to that ship. And like many vessels in the fleet, we provide all of the satellite communications, apart from the UHF channels, which come on Skynet, and the UHF radios, which are from Viasat. But we're doing everything else. We also support Danish, German, Polish, and other military vessels, border forces and coast guards, including the Swedish Coast Guard, shown in the middle. The rather weird-looking, some would say ugly ship in the bottom is a fleet auxiliary ship called Proteus. She was a ship taken up from trade. She was acquired and refitted by the MOD to basically survey undersea cables. And we've done a complete refit of that vessel to make her ready for defense operations. So for some commercial customers, we do much more than SATCOM. We do their information technology. We provide their security and cyber wrap. We do their navigation aids, LTE, deck handling equipment, security cameras, etc. And together with media content, so Wi-Fi services, crew calling, etc. And we now provide those welfare services to the Royal Navy and others, leveraging a TV and content management system called Snap TV. And we were fairly recently awarded the UK maritime multimedia contract to streamline and improve the services across the whole fleet in conjunction with British Forces Broadcasting Services, who help with some of the content. Now, maritime customers need to manage different types of traffic across networks and deal with interference and manage various services. And we have a software-defined networking system called Smart at Sea that was originally just for VSAT and LTE and super yachts, but has now broadened to include the whole suite of LEO systems. So we all know demand grows. We saw that over the 20 years in Afghanistan with both operational and welfare traffic. And we also know, for those particularly in uniform or involved in defense, that demand was suppressed. So partly by policy and partly by technology. And people kind of accepted they couldn't have broadband away from home. You might get 20 minutes on an Iridium phone. Having it at home or on a train in the UK is not a given either. But for sailors, commercial welfare services and broadband has been a really big issue. And here you can see an example for one of our commercial maritime customers across their whole fleet, the sort of use of data per vessel. And you can note the spike. I'm not sure if there's a laser here, but you can note the spike in sort of late 2023, driven by particularly the rollout of Starlink. But you can also see before there was a kind of uplift in the use of VSAT as well. Now, that use of VSAT has gone down markedly, but where broadband LEO is not available for regulatory or other issues, the demand appetite is now huge, so the VSAT is getting smashed. People have got used to greater speeds. It does present challenges, though, this kind of use of LEO broadband for when those networks are disrupted. And it's worth remembering that L-band is more resilient in bad weather and also better with blockages in and around ports, which is a real issue. And particularly, that's a key benefit for LEO over GEO. So from sort of larger platforms with crews ranging from 12 to 1,600 people on board, depending on the aircraft loading on the carrier, I'm now going to talk about much smaller teams at the edge. So as a company with decades supporting defense, we also support some inspiring teams and individuals. For example, HMS Audacious, in the middle, we have supported for 4 Atlantic crossings in a race called the Talisker Challenge. It's known as the world's toughest row, 3,000 miles across the Atlantic. And that's taken the Navy teams between 37 days, which was the fastest that year, and 46 days, depending on the team and conditions. The latest crew was an all-female crew known as the Valkyries, who raced that in December, January this year. And clearly, safety, support, and welfare is critical. And through Iridium sat phones and BGANs, fairly basic, long-standing services, this has been delivered. Now, in the future, it's likely that Wi-Fi and video could be delivered on LEO broadband, but currently BGANs are mandated by the organisers for safety. On land, on the right, as you look at it, we supported the No Legs, No Limits campaign by a guy called Harry Budamaga, first double above the knee amputee to summit Everest, ex-Gurkha soldier, which he conquered in May 2023 following years of rehab. And he's now busy conquering 7 summits, the highest on each continent. And again, we're supporting him with low swap communications, which makes a big difference. Interestingly, some of the base camps now have got Wi-Fi services, often delivered over LEO broadband. So moving from Inmarsat services and BGANs for Wi-Fi to Iridium Go exec and jumping down to the South Pole, we've supported some expeditions here, including some ex-Royal Marines, and most recently a disabled veteran, Johnny Huntington, who was the first disabled person to solo to the South Pole. So why do I talk about this? Well, because short video clips, images and WhatsApp, and sometimes a bit of drone footage, and the ability to call home is exactly what they need. Now, that said, low Earth orbit broadband services are going to be used by Craig Wood, the chap nearest to me. He's a triple amputee. He's doing a 6,000-mile sail across the Pacific single-handed, literally and metaphorically. And he has the space and power to do that, cracking bloke. So he's getting broadband because he's going to talk to schools on the way, so he needs that throughput and he's got the facilities to do it. So these are teams and people operating right at the edge, and they need communications tailored to their use case, the expected conditions, and what they can physically carry, support, and power. So I'm going to ram it home by talking about why does that still matter? Because narrowband remains key for users, such as the teams shown here, the Danish Special Forces teams, the serious dog sled patrols that work across the vast terrain of Greenland, deploying for months on end, largely based on Iridium services. Many NATO nations, and notably the UK-led Joint Expeditionary Force, so the selection of flags on the screen, mainly from the Baltics and Scandinavia, operate mainly in the high north. So LEO services, the new HEO services, as it comes online, are of significant importance. Now, L-band, combined with modern video compression, can support a surprising range of defense needs. So recent testing on the BGAN patrol system, the guy with the helmet and the data device, an airborne equivalent has proved this, delivering what I would call meaningful streaming video, enough to make some kind of assessment on, and the ability to upload HD images in the background, so very useful for dismounted troops, small platforms, drones, etc. And we obviously see this overlap with tactical systems, so the flipper devices on the bottom right, very small devices to convert combat radio into LTAC services, again, for range extension. But GEO remains key to defense, and that can achieve a thing called capacity density that current LEO services may struggle with. And terminals such as the Viasat GX Lite, again shown on the chart, are proving useful for small teams. So that's kind of today's stuff, and we've covered welfare, video, and critical voice comms. But another network driver is artificial intelligence and machine learning, and there is some nuance between the two, but I'll bundle them together. Ukraine is a really stark illustration of the ability to connect crewed and uncrewed sensors to shooters, and have seen users rapidly adopt, and in some cases adapt, software to defend against the illegal and unrelenting invasion. Companies active in defense, such as Palantir from the US and Helsing, a German company, see defense as a software problem. They're very vocal about the software problem. But they are now morphing into defense companies delivering hardware, delivering weapon systems into the hands of users. And there is this potential shift from the man in the loop to the man on the loop, or even the man outside the loop, where AI and ML may actually enable humans to be outside the loop, particularly for time-critical capabilities. And that means we really do need a coherent, multi-layered, resilient, hybrid network where satcom can play a role either as primary and/or alternate. So this hooks me into proliferated LEO. What can P-LEO bring? There's lots of stuff in the future. But P-LEO, including with inter-satellite links, the ability to deliver traffic in key friendly locations, and allow VNOs like ourselves the ability to tailor how we support our customer, will be critical. And here are 3 examples of where I think the next 2 years or so will deliver change. Now, the first is at the tactical edge. So this is simply the ability to look up and connect. And that is a real challenge with GEO systems. You need to site your GEO terminals on the edge of woods or on the edge of built-up areas, and particular challenges in the high north. So having a LEO constellation that's delivering broadband solves a lot of those problems. And these particularly dynamic networks will allow combat vehicles to maneuver at different angles, small craft in big waves, etc. So secondly, enabling ISR. So we can get video from small terminals on L-band, but broadband brings more capabilities. And that relationship to space-based ISR, whether national, allied, or commercial, is really important. So I've got about a minute, which I'm probably going to consume. So needs are changing. Increased customer expectation and demand. Those demands sometimes translate into formal requirements, and sometimes they're even funded. But there are lots of new demands, and every connection does present an attack vector. Comsat's often worked in parallel with, or indeed instead of Milsat for various reasons, and this community know more than most how capable commercial SATCOM is. We're a proven provider. We're used to working with a wide supply chain. We bring assured services, and the customers we've had for decades, and that's because of trying to be agnostic and integrate services. And our customers really do matter. The guys and girls in harm's way matter, and they matter to the values that we collectively share. So the tendency of late to leverage pure commercial LEO broadband does mean that users now really have to think about their alternate services, their alternate systems, whether it's lower throughputs, dropping onto different constellations, or dropping to Milsat. So falling back onto legacy systems include HF radio and to do more with less, and train us they need to fight, and not forgetting how to map read is really important. Now, the tin cans are on there to make a point. You know, tin cans are not prone to cyber attack. They will carry voice, but not very far. But command ultimately is on voice, and quite often I think defense can get obsessed about higher throughputs, which may not be there on the day, and they need to be ready for the day that they're brought back down to some basic services. So thank you very much. I'm about 30 seconds over, which means I probably don't get questions. I might get one, and if is coffee ready, it probably is. But I'm happy to take a question or chat to people over coffee or at our stand. That's a no. I'm done.